John Sterling is the father of sports talk radio since the early days at WMCA. To the voice of the team from the Bronx from 1989 to 2024. Some of those years on WABC, Sterling called 5,060 consecutive baseball games.
Yankees win!
And today, John Sterling is on the air on 77 WABC. This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
And we are live as I can be, from Studio A here at WABC. And you know that's 77 WABC. Well, we're going to talk with sports. We're going to take your phone calls. We have a couple of great guests. And but to begin, the biggest story today is Game 6 in Indianapolis between the Knicks and the Hicks. And can the Knicks win this game? They can. They prove they can win there. One thing I will say, if the Knicks do win tonight, and I have no idea who's going to win, but I would tell you in Game 7 at Madison Square Garden, the Knicks would win, and they would go after Oklahoma City in the final. I think Oklahoma City, by the way, is going to win the championship. I think they're terrific and different, really different. Anyway, that's the biggest game tonight with the Knicks at Indianapolis in this is the dumbest thing you can say, a must game. You know, they say it all year long, but when you're going to be knocked out, that's a must game. So it's going to be a great, if it ever gets to be summer, which I doubt, in the city, we're going to have a great baseball. We have two terrific teams. Currently, the Mets are 35-22, and they trail Philly by one game. And 35-22 is 57, so there's 105 games left. So not the time to get excited. The Yankees are 34-20. They built up a 7-game lead on the loss side over Toronto and Tampa. That also doesn't mean anything because there's so many games left. But, you know, I told someone the other day, they asked, well, what do you think of the Yankees, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I know it doesn't mean anything right now, but I'd much rather be 7 games up than 7 games out. So that is what's happening. And last week, a gentleman called up. Oh, I didn't give you the number. Excuse me. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Anyway, a gentleman called up. We didn't have any time for him, and he brought up a story about Joe DiMaggio. But as I said, we didn't have time. We had to get off. So, I see. That's how you do that. That's the executive producer, Rich Rottobali, who came in to fix things up. I need people to fix things up. And across the way under the glass, Eric Williams and Jonas Jackson, our producers and engineers, and man, they do a great job. I got a great crew here on Saturday. I'm very happy. Now, about DiMaggio. He brought up something that happened in 1949. And here's the story. I love the story. DiMaggio had a bad heel. He couldn't put any pressure on. He couldn't wear a shoe. He would wear one shoe and one carpet slipper. His heel was that bad. And he missed 65 games. Now, the Yankees were off that day, it was Thursday, and they were going to play the Giants in the Polo Grounds in something they used to do in the old days, the Mayor's Trophy game. They raised money for charity. And so on this beautiful late June morning, unlike the weather we have here in New York now, it was beautiful and sunny and warm and low humidity. Now, DiMaggio very gingerly got out of bed and very carefully put his foot on the floor. He didn't feel anything. First time in months and months and months, he didn't feel anything. He didn't believe it. So he tried again. He put his foot down. Nothing. Well, was he excited? he got up and walked around his suite in Midtown Manhattan, and he didn't feel anything. For some reason, the pain now had gone from his heel. So he called up the Yankees, and he said, I'm going to need batting practice pitchers, and I need guys to shag the balls in the outfield. I have to hit. And he went up to Yankee Stadium, and he hit, and he hit, and he hit till his hands were raw. And again, he called the Yanks and said, I'm going to go to Boston, but I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to fly up, and I'll go right to Fenway Park. Well, Dimash hit, and I guess he felt okay. Don't forget, he hit almost 65 games. There was no going out to the minor leagues like they do now. It was all different. And Dimash flew up to Boston and went to Fenway Park. And he went to Casey Stengel, who had never had a chance to manage him. Stengel had just gotten the job. And he saw DiMaggio in the clubhouse, and DiMaggio said, I'm fine. I'm ready to play, which is all that Stengel needed to hear. So that night, DiMaggio batted in his normal 4-hole, the cleanup hitter, and played center field. Now, the Yankees went out in the first inning, 1-2-3. Boston went out, and in the second inning, DiMaggio led off. Well, he hit one over the high wall into the nets for a home run in his first at-bat of the year. Stengel came out of the dugout and bowed down to him as he came around. He finally had a chance to write DiMaggio's name in the lineup. Well, that was the beginning of an unbelievable weekend for the Yankees. In a moment, I'll tell you how important. They won all 3 games. DiMaggio hit 4 home runs and had many other hits. And at the end of the year, Boston had a 1-game lead over the Yanks, and they were going to play 2 games Saturday and Sunday. The Yankees had to win both. And they're down 4-0 in the Saturday game. They came back to win. A fellow named Johnny Lindell hit a home run in the 8th, and the Yankees won. The next day, the final game of the year, and the Yankees won. Casey Stengel won his first pennant, went on to play the Dodgers in the World Series, and won, and that began the greatest string in baseball. 5 straight pennants, 5 straight World Series. And it all began for the Yankees when DiMaggio came up to Boston after missing 65 games and then playing unbelievably well. Good story about Joe D. Good story. Upcoming, first of all, the phone number, 1-800-848-9222, and we'll get back with more of the Sterling Show on 77 WABC.
Scores again. This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
I have a buddy lined up, and you're going to love this. He's so informative. He's done everything on the air, and all of it in Connecticut. So we're going to talk to a buddy of mine, Joe, in a moment. Just one thing. I didn't mention hockey. Well, the finals are going to start in a day or so. And now you know that I've spent 55 years, I know it sounds unbelievable, in following teams around the country. Do you know how many flights I've been on? Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, think of this. You know, there's a rule, Murphy's Law, whatever, that whatever can go wrong is going to go wrong. So the 2 teams playing for the Stanley Cup in the National Hockey League are Edmonton and Florida. Now, I have no idea how long that flight is, but boy, does it sound long to you? Whoa! Edmonton to Florida. Thank heavens I don't have to be on those flights. Well, here is my buddy, Joe D'Ambrosia. Hello, Joe.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling. I'm guessing there's no direct flights from Edmonton to Sunrise, Florida, where the Panthers.
You know, Joe, I once, when I was doing the Hawks, Stan Kasten did a very bright thing. he sold, I forget how many, 10, let's say 10 games to a place in New Orleans, an arena in New Orleans. And I used to kid about that because, we finish a game in Portland and have to fly to New Orleans. And that was before basketball charted. And let me tell you, there were no direct flights between Portland and New Orleans. Joe, let's begin this way because you have such an eye. Joe has broadcast basketball, hockey, and football, and that's his base, Hartford, Connecticut, that area. And an amazing thing happened to Connecticut, and maybe, Joe, you can tell us why and how it happened. I mean, Connecticut's a wonderful state, but it's a smallish state. And they landed Jim Calhoun, and we had Dama Mori on last week. He's coming out with a book on Jim Calhoun, and Gino Auriemma, and they won championships after championships in Connecticut. How did it happen?
Well, I think first off, John, they had a very supportive athletic director at the time in John Toner, who hired both Jim and Gino. Gino was hired in 85 and Jim was hired in 86. And they knew they weren't under pressure to win right away, but Gino won a Big East tournament championship 4 years in. Jim won the Big East tournament championship 4 years in, but then it took them 9 more years to win their first NCAA. It took Gino 5 years to win their first NCAA. And I think the reason they were successful was because both of these coaches sold the kids on the aspect of, we want you to come here, get your education. It's going to be a family atmosphere. We're not going to toss you out on your ear if you have a bad game or two. And they just, I think on the men's side especially, guys saw that Jim could turn out NBA players. They knew that from Northeastern, where he coached the late Reggie Lewis and some other players there. And eventually the same thing happened with Gino when the WNBA became popular, and Rebecca Lobo and Carol Walters, Jen Rosati, Nikisha Sales. So I think that was it. You're right. It is unique. There's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of people who have said that maybe what Jim has done or did with the UConn men was the greatest building job in college basketball history. I'm biased as I got to sit on the sidelines and talk about it for 26 years, but I wouldn't disagree with that.
When you add them up, I don't have any idea, but I think you do. How many championships have the men's and women's teams won?
Well, the men have won 6, 3 under Jim, 1 under Ken Ollie, 2 under Danny Hurley. The women have just won their 12th, Gino, and they're both, and it's silly to talk about this now, these bracketology 6 months before the season begins, but both are expected to have really good chances to win national championships again. And UConn's the only school, John, that has won both the men and the women's championship in the same year, and they've done it twice.
I think it's utterly amazing, and I'm going to back that up. The New York Rangers have gone 85 years winning one championship.
Right.
85 years. From 1940, they only won one. And so it's not easy to win these championships. And I would say, Joe, and I think you probably agree with me, the Ranger organization probably has more money than any other hockey team. I mean, now they certainly do with the Dolans and Cablevision. It's not Cablevision anymore, but anyway, they've won. Knicks have won 2.
Right.
The same group in 70 and 73. And I can't do this math, but the league started in 46. So they've won 2 championships in some 75.
Yeah. Yeah, in the 57 and in 80-something years.
Wow. And that's the same organization. And,
right.
People get so excited that the Yankees haven't won a championship since 2009. I'm wearing that ring today, as a matter of fact. And,
nice. Very.
But they're in the playoffs all the time. But anyway, what Connecticut has done in college basketball is unbelievable. Now, what do you, Joe, think about the whole NIL business, where football and basketball, because that's the two sports that bring in money, for a lot of money, where players are now staying in college because they're going to get paid in college? What are your thoughts?
For a long time, John, I think a lot of us who have been along college athletics around it thought the players should get paid. But I think the whole NIL thing, it could be on the verge of getting out of control. And all it's going to take is one big school to dip their hand in the candy jar illegally for the whole thing to blow up. The biggest problem I have, John, isn't with NIL or with the kids getting paid. It's with guys and girls in some places being able to go to 3 different schools in 5 years or 4 schools in 6 years. It's always been said that you always root for the front of the jersey. And that's now in college sports. You have to, because you don't know what name's on the back of the jersey.
Yeah, Rick Pitino, and he's been great at it, a great general manager. And he has a whole new group this year. The first year he had a whole new group, then a whole new group. So it's just different. It's different from how we were brought up, where if a guy started in college as a freshman or sophomore, you figured they'd go all the way. Connecticut is also interesting because I did a talk show for an outfit that went under in months, Enterprise, that's what it was. And as my good friend Shelley Adler of AP Sports would say, Enterprise Radio, the broke network. Anyway, but Hartford is 100 miles from the city and 100 miles from Boston. So what are your thoughts about those two teams this year, the Yanks and the Red Sox?
Well, being here in the middle, I get to read the New York papers and, of course, the Boston Globe with our friend Peter Abraham, who does such an amazing job covering the Red Sox for the Globe. I like the way the Yankees are playing. Obviously, last night was the first time that Max Fried has had any sort of problems, and of course, look at the team that he had problems against. Obviously, Judge, and you got to watch him up close, is phenomenal. And I like the way they filled in after Soto left. I think Bellinger, certainly Goldschmidt is playing like the Goldschmidt of old. Fried's been tremendous. Devin Williams seems to be pitching better. I think when they get Heel back, they'll be stronger. And I think when they get Chisholm back to play third base, they'll be stronger. And as far as the Red Sox are concerned, they started off very well, but they've had a couple of big injuries. Bregman's going to be out for a while. Tristan Casas is out for the season, and I never thought their pitching was that strong. And they're not strong behind the plate. The Navarez kid, who was like the third catcher for the Yankees, has been seeing most of the time catching. I would think without injuries to any of the big players, I don't see why the Yankees don't repeat again. But there's a lot of good competition if they get out of the American League East. Certainly the Royals, the Tigers. You have to face Tarek Skubal twice in a 5-game series. Good luck to you. Right.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, which is why you're such a good broadcaster. And, one thing you did say, Bregman was off to a great start. He was the perfect guy to go to the Red Sox. They needed another right-hand power hitter. They needed a third baseman. Obviously, they decided that Rafael Devers is not going to be their third baseman. And then they lost Casas. So you've lost the corners of the infield with great power.
Right.
So, that's kind of a big problem. Well, Joe, it's always great to talk to you. And I hope you call me off the air so we can figure out how to have Din soon. So
we will do that.
Okay. Well, you be well. Thank you, Joe, for coming on. I appreciate it.
John, thanks for having me on your show. It's a great honor. Have a great rest of your day.
I thank you, sir. The phone number, 1-800-848-9222. Let's take a couple of calls. Let's begin with Pete in Lakewood. Hello, Pete.
Okay. I got another trivia question for you. Baseball trivia. The two dead politicians, they both received science scholarships, but they didn't take them. Who were they?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
Two dead politicians.
Two dead politicians.
They both received offered science scholarships from baseball. Both of them refused it. That's why they became politicians. Who were they?
I don't know. Who were they?
Fidel Castro and Mario Cuomo.
Well, there you are. I'm glad you brought that up. I never would have thought of it. Let's go to Ross in New York. Hello, Ross.
Yo. John, first of all, let me say thank you for all the years. It's been terrific.
Yeah, I loved it too.
I have a question for you, John. I'm an older guy, and I just don't have the answer. But I remember I was sitting in Yankee Stadium, the old stadium, and I watched what I thought was history in the making. I saw the Yankees play Kansas City. Top of the first inning, Willie Wilson hits an inside the park home run.
I can understand that.
Bottom of the first, Bucky Dent hits an inside the park home run. Both leadoff hitters in the same inning hit an inside the park home run. Do you remember when? Because I can't. I don't. And I don't. I know it's got to be 40 years or so ago.
You mean it would have to be more than 40? Because I was doing the games for 36 years. I don't remember that. That may have happened. Maybe it happened in the 80s. I was in Atlanta then with my own problems with the Atlanta Braves. So, I don't remember. You don't have, any answer on that?
No, I don't. I don't use a computer and,
either do I.
I'm 74 years old. And I remember, I'm not a fool. I remember watching it happen right in front of my eyes.
I would not know about that, and I think that's great. Good for you. Good for you. Thank you for Ross. Let's go to John. He's in New York as well. My namesake. Hello, John.
Hello, Mr. Sterling.
John.
Yes, John from New Rochelle.
Hello, John from New Rochelle.
You brought back my memory. I'm a huge Joe DiMaggio fan. I was 11 years old when what he did in 1949. It was an unbelievable feat. Unbelievable.
May I tell you something interesting? Yeah,
yes,
tell him, John. We're the same age.
You are? You're 86 years old?
Yes, sir.
So when's your birthday?
July 4th.
Oh, Mr. Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
Right?
And
That's his birthday.
And the late Peter Angelos. Yes. Thank you very much.
Right, and my friend is...
I appreciate it. Thank you. So a few calls and another guest. You go, wait, this guest is going to be great too. And we're going to do all that when we return. 1-800-848-9222. Your phone calls, and we will be back in just a moment after we, as they say, pay some bills.
You'll win. Let's go with 77 WABC.
This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
And I'm here with not only a good guest, but a really good friend of mine for a really long time. He's done so many things, it's tough to put him in one bracket. But he was a great All-American star at Duke, drafted by the Baltimore Bullets. By the way, the Bullets at that point were way down, and then, of course, there were fewer teams in the league, and they drafted in order Jack Marin, Earl Monroe, and Wes Unseld. So that's how they built up. Jack, what year was that? What year were you drafted?
It was just after the Civil War, John. That's 1966.
Yeah, I was wondering, was it 66 or 67? I couldn't get it straight, but that.
Well, it was for the 66-67 season, but it was the summer of 66, yeah.
Now,
I came out of Duke in 66.
Yeah. Now, Duke had been a very good team. They had a lot of stars before you, but after you came in, then Duke became an unbelievable college power.
Yeah, well, sometime after that, we had a really good run in the early 60s with Art Heyman from New York,
yes,
who was Player of the Year in the country, and then Jeff Mullins, and then myself and Bob Verga out of New Jersey, and Steve Ascendek. We were 72-14 my 3 years at Duke, and played lost to Kentucky in the semifinals in '66. My matchup was a guy that people probably won't remember. His name's Pat Riley.
Oh.
But yeah. Well, but anyway, we had a really good run. Then there was a quiet period, and then Bill Foster took him to the Final Four again, and then of course Coach K came in the mid '80s or the early '80s. I'm sorry, and the rest is Coach K's history, which is remarkable.
Yeah, it really is, and of course it's such a great school as well. That's a heck of a combination. Now, you told me something interesting when you found out I'm doing the show on WABC, and you said I was a young guy in Pennsylvania listening.
I was a kid in Pennsylvania, and I listened to Cousin Brucey on late night or early night because of the 50,000 watt Clear Channel, and I remember him. There were 3 or 4 Clear Channel stations you could get, and WABC was among the best. And Cousin Brucey was a great talent, and I enjoyed it immensely.
You know, Jack, he's on this station right now. Well, not right now. I'm on the station right now, and so are you. Yeah. But when is Brucey on? 6 o'clock? What, on Saturday? Saturday at 6? All right, Jack.
That's just about after we're done, an hour after we're done. Yeah.
Well,
after find that. That's great.
After it gets dark, that's when these signals fly, and we are 50,000 watts, Clear Channel, and non-directional, which is a big thing. We can spray the signal out. I did a talk show at WSB in Atlanta, another 50K Clear Channel non-directional, and my general manager gave me an 800 number. And now Atlanta is a little further west than people think. It's like under Toledo. And we had 31 states call because the signal goes up. I want you to talk about this, Jack, because this is the most important thing we'll talk about. You're involved and have been for years and years in a project similar to Tunnels and Towers. Talk about it.
Well, I've been actually chairman of the board, I think, for 12 years now, of Hope for the Warriors, which was started on the base at Camp Lejeune by some Marine families, two Marine wives in particular, Robin Kelleher and Shannon Maxwell. And Robin remains the CEO, became and remains the CEO, and is probably among the most dynamic people I've ever met in my lifetime. And we're now in our, since 2006, we're in our 19th year. I think since Charity Navigator came along, we've been top rated, 4-star rated for at least the last 14 years. We have a wonderful board of directors and all volunteers, and we have a staff of about 50 people. We're very much a hands-on organization. Our budget is between $8 and $10 million a year now, and Robin is chiefly responsible for raising almost all of it. She's remarkable. I think she's raised over $100 million now.
Oh boy!
With her personal effort, I know we help some, but you have to give a person their due. Robin does most of it, and we basically work with financial wellness for people, for military families. Mostly those who have physical or emotional issues. We try to provide social support for them and connect them to their communities. We're a nationwide organization now, headquartered in Springfield, but with remote offices in a number of states. It's just been it's been very uplifting for me to see both our staff do what they do, and to see the response and the joy that it brings, and the effort that it encourages from those guys and women who have had damage and difficult times, fight their way through it and take their place back in civilian life, which is not easy from what I've seen.
Oh, Jack, why don't you, if people want to get involved, how do they do it? And, of course, the biggest thing is to provide some financial support. So how do they go about that?
Yeah, they can reach us by going to hopeforthewarriors.org. It's a little bit long of a URL, but it's hopeforthewarriors.com. I'm sorry, hopeforthewarriors.org. My mistake. Hopeforthewarriors.org.
Well, I hope a lot of people who are listening, and I'm sure there are a lot of people listening,
and you can write it down there, and they can call WABC, and please give it out to them. We obviously need financial support all the time, but we have an office in New York. We've had an office in New York a long time, thanks to a fellow named Harry Bridgewood, who was a detective in the police force. He was one of the people who really helped launch this organization.
Well, I hope people will do something about that. That's the biggest thing. Everyone feels it. They have to do it. Jack, I want you to hang on wherever you are. And when we come back, we'll talk a little basketball. And, of course, you're listening to 77 WABC.
Scores again.
This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
Indeed. And we're on the phone with the ex-Baltimore Bullet. He played for Houston, Buffalo, I think in Chicago. Am I right?
That's correct.
Isn't that amazing?
I never had a center quite like Wes Unseld until I played with Artis in Chicago, and Artis Gilmore. He was quite a player. Well, when
Wes Unseld came on, all of a sudden guys were, as they say, leaking out because he'd rebound and had that great outlet pass. Here's a question. I've heard a lot of people, including myself, but a lot of older players or whatever, broadcasters, whatever, they hate the three-point shot. They hate all these three-pointers. As Kevin told me once, they take shots I used to get pulled for. And so what do you think of the avalanche of three-point shots?
Well, it would have helped me, I think. I was a long-distance shooter, but I do think it's dramatically changed the game in ways that are both good and bad. I mean, when you see, as you may remember, John, I was a pretty good shooter. In fact, I was a really good shooter. And there are 80 guys in the league right now. I wouldn't go anywhere near in a horse game. They have become such dazzling shooters, and particularly late in the game. I mean, I watch not a lot of NBA basketball, but I watch more and more because I'm more and more impressed with that long distance shooting. Now it changed the game a great deal because it used to be that the center play was so important, and that isn't. In fact, all the centers go out and shoot 3-pointers now. So
yes,
it is a really, really different game. And I'm not sure you can say it's better or worse. It's just a much different game.
Well, that's a good way of. I brought this up because Jack Marin shot long jumpers. And you have to admit this, our buddy Kevin Lockery and Dave DeBuscher of the Knicks all would have been great three-point shooters, but they didn't have the three-point field goal then. There probably were others. I'm just naming a couple. And I'll tell you this story. The Bullets used to practice before training camp began at the JCC next to Pimlico racetrack. And one day I'm on the sideline because I played then. Didn't play well, but I played. And I'm standing with the GM of the Bullets, Bob Ferry, who was a very, very good friend of mine. And Jack Marin comes down and boom, he hits shot after shot after shot, one more long jumper, or springer, as Jack used to call him, and one after the. It was just what a display of shooting. So I turned to Bob and I said, "Boy," I said, he can really shoot." And Bob said, "That's why we're paying him." So.
Yeah, that's it. They were not paying me for passing the ball. So anyway, you talk about the NBA, and I wanted to digress a bit about, because I sit here and I enjoy a wonderful life here in Durham, North Carolina, and a great deal of it is because of the things that have come to me from the NBA, both when I played, but now particularly since I've been retired. I mean, I don't know that the NBA and the Players Association together, I don't know that any other group of former employees is treated better than they are by the league, that is their former owners and the Players Association. I mean, our benefits that we have, our pension that we have, and even health benefits. Now, for guys who've been out of the league for 30, I got a health benefit from them after I was out of the league for 40 years. Now, I don't know where that happens, where else that happens, but I can just say that the NBA and the Players Association together have just done a remarkable job. And there's one guy I'd mentioned, obviously David Stern, the late, and of course Adam Silver has continued it and pushed it along. But it would not have happened without the cooperation and the urgency of the Players Association. And I've got one friend there I'd like to mention. His name is Ronnie Klempner, who's now senior counsel there. And I worked with him 30 years ago when we started to work on the pension. And he's been a yeoman in working with the retired players. He really got it. And I just give him a shout out, because that he and, of course, the other folks at the Players Association have really, really made our lives of many, many retired players much better because of having played in the league. So back to basketball game.
Well, that's
your question.
That's a good story and good sentiments. We were involved in basketball when they were building. And are you amazed at what pro basketball has become?
Oh, I am. The other thing I was to say, coming and playing in the Garden was special. I don't know that I was never more nervous before a game. Sitting in the Sheraton or the old Statler Hilton 3 or 4 hours before a game in New York was just nerve-wracking, because you had to go play in the Garden. I even played in the old Garden my first year in the league, up under by the Port Authority and everything, and then I played down it. But we played in front. You remember we played in front of 2,000 or 3,000 fans in
That's
Baltimore.
my point.
Well, when we got to New York, we played in front pretty much packed houses all the time. If not, at least 10 to 12,000 people, and the most knowledgeable fans in the world. And it was the game. And of course, those series that we had with the Knicks in the playoffs were just the highlight of my career. People send me basketball cards all the time to sign, and I sign them. And someone will ask me a question, what's your highlight? And I write down a date, 4/1971. And that was the day we beat the Knicks in the Garden in the 7th game. That was the highlight of my pro career.
Oh, that was fabulous.
93-91, and it was after losing to them twice in a row, and now we finally beat them in the Garden, and that was the highlight.
Oh,
but the basketball fans in New York are legendary. A friend of mine, Andy Ekman, cornered me and asked me to come to a thing down in Boca this winter, and it's oddly enough there were a bunch of Knicks fans in Boca Raton in the winter. Can you imagine that? They were it was an old alumni fraternity of people who were basically fans or even players back then, and it was a luncheon, and it was wonderful because I was greeted very warmly by a lot of Knicks fans, and I greatly appreciated it.
Well, I think, Jack, first of all, those meetings with the Knicks were phenomenal. And the only one the Bullets won was in 71. They lost 2 or 3 others. And it was a fabulous night. And it's one of my highlights, too. And I even remembered the score as you did, 93, 91. And we went out to Sinatra's favorite place. I can't think of the name, but I know the people. Oh, Jilly.
Mama Leone's.
No, Jilly's. And then we went to, this is late at night, and we kept the place open, the steakhouse in the 40s. Man, I can't remember it, but I do remember this. We had all these people at this enormous table, and at one head of the table was the owner, Abe Poland, and at the other end was me. And so Abe said, as we all sat down drinking and such, he said, "All right, John, I'll get my half." I probably had $10 in my pocket. Anyway, that was, you know, the story I wanted to tell quickly, something that we used to say about, you mentioned the Garden and the sold out crowds. And that was the thing we said. If the game was at 4 a.m, that place would be filled. So that was a very magical time.
Well, you know, and of course, Earl wanted to always play in New York, and you could understand why. And he ended up getting Earl Monroe, and he ended up getting his dream because he was Showtime, and he was big time. And playing in New York, he really deserved to play in New York. You know, I was happy for him.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy, and he's done very, very well, and has authored a school. That's terrific. Jack, it's been great talking to you. I wish you'd come to New York so we could go out and have drinks and din-din. So work on it, okay?
Well, I got a good friend up in Westchester. I've gone up to play in Old Oaks in his one-day member guest up there, and his name is Ben, and Ben's a little under the weather. Otherwise, I might be trying to get up that way and get around to golf. You know, I love that game, and I've been playing a lot of senior golf tournaments, and so...
And winning, too. Jack Marin is a scratch golfer. I've played with him. I know. Big, long lefty swing. Jack, thank you, my boy, and I hope we talk again soon.
You bet, John. It was so nice to get your call, and you can call me anytime, pal. And if you're this way, please let me know.
Well, you'll be on the show a lot then. Thank you, Jack. Do we have a spot? Have we done them? We're just up to the top, right? So I guess I'll go to these phone calls. The phone number, 1-800-848-9222. And let's go to Dan in New Jersey.
Hi, John. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm great. I'm a big fan. I actually got myself into sports broadcasting because of you, because you've been such an inspiration to me. I just wanted to say thank you, and I think you and another Yankee legend, Eddie Layton, should be in Monument Park.
Well, I agree with that. I love it. Eddie Layton was the organist, and he was the organist on soaps as well. And so I could talk soap operas with Eddie Layton to give me answers. And he would sit and have dinner every night with Bob Shepard. And they would ask me, you know, music stuff. I'd give them music stuff. And the Yankees made a trade once, and they got a right-hander named Eric Plunk from Oakland. And I told them that they ought to use this song that wasn't written for him. It was just a song that was written, and the song was Plink, Plank, Plunk, the guy with a violin. I don't think...
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, okay. Anything else, Dan?
So I think the Yankees have a problem in their infield in terms of DJ LeMahieu and Vivas. I think Vivas is a nice little player, but him and LeMahieu combined have an OPS under 500, and I think the Yankees, as you saw last night, I don't know why Boone went to LeMahieu over Escara, but I think the Yankees have a little bit of an issue with their infield depth, and I think it's time to cut ties with LeMahieu, and it's tough because he's been...
The thing I will tell you this, moments. And there are 105 games left. The moves in baseball become when you know who you are and what you're doing. So if you know you're going to be bad, you want to get players that you can, or draft choices, whatever. And so what I guess I'm saying is Jazz Chisholm is going to come back very soon, next week, I think. And Brian Cashman, if he has to, will make a deal. He's terrific at it. Let's go to Pete in Staten Island. Hello, Pete.
I got a great memory. I got to tell you this. My father worked 7 days a week. He was a plasterer. He worked in A&S in Brooklyn. He used to do all the designs like the Christmas tree that hangs down and all the masonry work. But one Saturday, I come down about 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's reading the newspaper, and he says, you know what, today's the Old Timers game. I go, yeah. He goes, Dad, you want to go? And it was my first game that I ever went to. And we went, I was about 12. And the memory I have is beautiful. What I saw, I witnessed Mickey Mantle hitting a home run to left field, batting lefty, and right-handed, he'd hit it to right field. And I saw Joe DiMaggio and the Old Timers, and I had the time of my life. We didn't have tickets. My father said, like you said, there's always guys by the garage, and we could buy the tickets right there.
Right.
Well, Dad went over. They were $10 face tickets at the time, which are probably $400 tickets today.
Right.
And he says, how much? And the guy says, $40 a piece. Well, my dad says, okay. He pulled out the money, and he grabbed the guy's hand with the tickets, and he squeezed his hand. The guy went to his knees. He says, how much for them now? And the guy goes, 2 tickets, $20, $10 ticket. Give me $40. My father goes, $40? Okay, I'm going to give him $40. He gave him $40. We got the tickets, went in, sat down. My father tipped the guy that took us to the seats, and we enjoyed the game of our life.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good story. I love it. I love those stories. Daddy, tell me a story. I love those stories. Robert is in New York City. Hello, Robert.
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon, John Sterling. You are a legend, and I got to tell you very quickly, many years ago, we met for about 3 minutes on a ferry boat around 42nd Street and the pier. It was an event that was, I believe, run at the time you were working for WMCA as a sports announcer, and it was arranged by my very dear friend, whom I still miss, the late Barry Farber.
No.
And we shook hands and we talked.
I couldn't get in. Yeah, I worked with Barry Farber. I liked him.
50 years. And I got to tell you, the thing that I was so incredible was, and I remembered, and we talked about the New York Raiders.
Oh.
And your calls on the Raiders. Raider goal! Raider goal! Raider goal! My dear friend Miriam Stone, who's a great hockey fan from Queens. She's been an Islander fan since before Custer went to Little Bighorn. I'm telling you, but shaking your hand and talking to you. So very quickly, let me ask you, what do you think of the upcoming Stanley Cup? Who do you like, Florida or Edmonton, and why? And who do you think is going to get the better ratings, the NBA Finals or the Stanley Cup on television?
Well, I think it depends on the teams involved. If the Knicks get in, I can guarantee you they would have the higher ratings. Edmonton and Florida, obviously they're tough teams. They're in the final, and I'd have to select one. I would say if I had to lean forward, I would say Edmonton because of Connor McDavid and the fact they also have home ice. Florida's a big, tough team, so they won't have any problems in Edmonton banging away. But because of McDavid, I think he's so good that I would pick Edmonton. I want to thank Eric Williams and Jonas Jackson. Behind the glass, Rich Ratabali, the executive producer. I have a great crew. I love it. I love this show, and I'm looking forward to next week. So this is John Sterling. It's been a pleasure.